Today I'm running out a few sections of bespoke solid timber cornice as part of a kitchen build that I've been working on over the last couple of months. If you're not familiar with what cornice is, it's the decorative trim component that runs around the top of the cabinetry, and it's usually made up of some sort of singular large moulding that we have to run through on the spindle moulder. I've had a custom cutter made to suit this customer specifications. I'm going to take you through the whole process of making this timber cornice from start to finish, including painting it. And there's a little quirk that I do on the back side of the cornice that really helps when it comes to fitting, and I'll get into that later on. For a start though, we're going to need some timber. I'm using tulipwood. It's a really nice timber for machining and gives lovely properties for when you're painting timber as well, so it's perfect for this application. If you're interested in winning some free materials, actually, James Latham are running a competition at the minute that is free to enter online. There's a link down below this video explaining everything you need to do, but it's very simple to enter. Every single entry will get some merchandise as well. If you're interested in that, then have a look below in the description box and follow the instructions that you'll find there. As a side note, I've used Latham's for a long time. They do look after me in terms of their timber rep is very good. He makes sure I've got the material that I need, and it's always high quality. I really can't fault them on that front, so they are a good company to deal with. These are the cutters that I've had made up for this cornice section. So a lovely deep cove profile with a couple of returns at the bottom. Got a little pattern piece here. Always get a couple of short sections out for setting up the machines on and running some test cuts. So that's my one here. Be careful with them, actually, they're completely covered in oil. That's not good. We're going to be doing a cut something like this today in this timber. So we're nice and square on the spindle moulder. I've drawn these out so they suit the upright position of the spindle moulder. I don't need to tilt this cutter back. I'm just going to eat away into this until we've got that full profile design here. And the actual finished cornice is going to sit on an angle like this, and the little nib at the bottom here is going to be sort of vertical on the cabinets. So let's get the beast out. I did actually ask for these cutters to be ground back, so that's sort of the standard cutter blank. So I've asked for as much material to be removed out of them as possible to keep the radius, so the outer diameter of the cutters here, to an absolute minimum, which he has done for me, and will help massively with how much wind this thing's kicking off from the spindle moulder. Oh, will it fit in there? I'm not going to take this out in one monster cut. I'm going to get there near in two passes, and then do a final pass that's very nice and clean, because I don't want too much sanding. Do this kind of by feel. You can normally have a good guess as to how much of a first cut to take, but just by how the machine sounds and how well it's taking it, you might have to make an adjustment. Right, second pass now, I'm just going to inch it backwards. So push a bit through by hand, check how it's machining, how it's landing on the back fence as it comes off, because we're going to be removing the flat surface of the timber with this cut. Make sure the back fence is up tight, so it's nice and supported. So here's our profile we're going to be working towards, and I've got all the sizes of how I want these interactions to be. So I'm about 13 mil of flat on the top here, which I've just about got on here. I think I've got exactly 13. So we kind of want to be coming off there at the appropriate angle to make the top along here. Then we've got to cut in at another 90-degree angle, and then take the back off of here or somewhere there and bring that up as well at the same angle. So all of these cuts, 1, 2, 3 and 4, are all at the same cutter block angle but at 90 degrees to each other. So I'll put a rebate block in the spindle moulder and we'll set that angle up. And for that, should I use my new Bradshaw branded cutter block? Look at that beauty. The next cut, where I'm taking this section out here, I'm running it vertically, so this bit of the timber is against the upright fence on the machine. Now that's sorted, our final cut is the nice little rebate cut in the top. And before we get into talking about how we do this and what it's for and why it's so important, I want to introduce today's video sponsor in Ansell and their Hi-Flex glove range. Now you'll have seen me using these gloves throughout this video. It's getting towards winter now. It's definitely a lot cooler in the workshop. So the black 11-840 glove is again my glove of choice. I just get on so well with this. It is the perfect glove in my opinion. Not only because of their perfect fit and skin-like feel, but because they offer so much extra grip. You'll have seen me on the crosscut saw earlier, moving timber around without having to pick or grip the timber. I just have my hand on top of it, like these bits of cornice here. There's a 4.5 metre length of cornice, and without even gripping around it, just on top of it, I can slide that around on the bench. Have a look at their website. They've got all the different types of gloves they do on there, and they can all be found to be bought on Amazon or Google. They do some really cool gloves. There's some thinner versions of these that I mentioned in one of my previous videos that's more for summer use, but there's absolutely any type of glove you could possibly imagine on there, so go and check that out. So if you are on the fence of buying a set of these gloves, perhaps have a look at the comments and see some genuine reviews from people that have been out and bought these things. Right, so back to our Cornice video. We're getting into this last cut here. We're not going to alter the cutter to make this little rebate, but you might be wondering what the purpose of it is. I use birch ply or MDF or some sort of panel material on top of the cabinet. And just to give it an absolutely perfect reference point for this cornice to sit on top of the cabinet, I notch in to the back face the thickness of the birch plywood away from this top edge, and at 90 degrees and the same angle that the cornice is fitted. And what I can do then, once that notch is there, is drill down through the piece of plywood or MDF with some screw holes and actually screw it in somewhere in this location here with a wood screw, like so. and that would fix the two together, and it gives me a landing on top of the face frames for the cornice to hold itself up. So when you're mitering and chopping these things in, you can put a temporary one if you wish to, and it just holds it in place while you're working your next piece in. It gives you the perfect fixing point to actually fix it down without having to do anything through the face here. And actually, I like to leave a little bit of a V, whether you take the edge off the board or you don't rebate it quite as much, so it leaves a little notch there. And it works really well in sort of laundry rooms and stuff like that, where you have a little notch in the top and you can lodge your coat hanger in there. And one more little top tip as well for this one: if you keep this board and the rebate slightly shallow so that the board is thicker than the cornice, if you store stuff on top of the cupboards, so put say a box on top of the cornice and this board sits higher than the actual cornice itself, when you drag that box or whatever it is on top of that off, it's not going to catch the cornice and sort of dislodge it every time that you bring that over. It's sort of going to freely slide off the top of there and over the edge without sort of knocking this. So you do need a tilting spindle moulder in order to do this. You can't really do it on a normal spindle, short of holding the piece of wood up at an angle like that and sort of creating crown stops or a back stop in order to do this. So it is possible. It's way easier on a tilting spindle, because what we can do is just wind the bed down, or the cutter, until we get to our height. Then we've got a bit of a game of cat and mouse of back and forth until we get to the exact position we want to be in. I've not got a cabinet to hand to just slip this over quickly, but you see the concept there on my bandsaw. Really easy to sort of sit on there and work on that while it holds itself on. And like I say, that top board I scribe around the top of my cabinets all the way to the walls. You've got a fully sort of flat shelf on top of the cupboards that if you did put something up there, they don't fall down and behind. Right, give them a little sand up to finish them off. There we go, they are ready for another sand and then a couple of top coats. So that's 2 primers. It's really nice using these primers because they tend to fluff up really well and sand back absolutely flawlessly, and there's not a ripple to be seen down the length of that cornice, which is really nice because on a deep curve like that, the last thing you want to see in a high-end bit of cabinetry is any like ripple marks from the machining process. So they are looking pretty stunning, if I do say so myself. But yeah, 2 more coats of paint, 2 more rub downs with the 320 grit. So flat the top coat down, then do a final brush coat when they've been fitted. So they will be looking absolutely mint by that point. The process of sanding these, it's really important to use a fairly stiff pad to sort of bridge the gaps between the machining ripples. You'll have noticed as I was sanding, there was like lines across the moulding profile here. That's where each cut of the cutter has sort of eaten into it as it's passed through. So the idea of a stiffer sanding pad is to sort of sand over them ripples and smooth them out. If you use too soft of a backing pad or too much like a foam or just your hands, like your fingers will follow every one of them ripples and actually just sand it into a smoother version of the ripple. But actually what you want to do is to flatten the whole thing out through and along the length. So it's really important you use the right bit of sandpaper for the right bit of the mouldings. There's 3 or 4 different pieces of sandpaper I used on this to get a finish on all the different parts.